meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Welcome to our February report meeting, and the first one is Bob Templeton with Templeton Demographics. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Newcomb, Superintendent Chadwell, members of the board. First, I want to thank you for the get well wishes and the plant that you sent during my illness. The plant is still alive and doing quite well, and I'm doing quite well, and I'm elated to be here with you this afternoon. I will touch on the economic conditions that we're seeing across the DFW region and a good bit of time talking about the housing market. We had a record-breaking quarter in the fourth quarter for new home starts. One of the biggest quarters that we probably had in over 10 years. So the housing market is definitely surging in the Eagle Mountain School District. And so I don't see that changing in the short term because there's a tremendous amount of development activity that is taking place. Well, we're very fortunate. We continue to be one of the top cities in the country for job growth. The job growth rate is right at 3.4%. Depending upon which month you look at the data, we're either second or third in the nation for job growth. This past December, we were second. Houston has now jumped back up into the top spot. So Texas has 3 cities in the top 25 job growth cities in the country, and Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, 1 and 2 as of December 2018. That represents about 127,000 annual jobs being added to the DFW region. Don't see that slowing down in the short term. So many of the major relocations that are coming to the area are still in the kind of early stages of their relocations. Plus the Alliance Corridor, the 170, 114 corridor, there's a tremendous amount of job growth that is in that area, which will have a impact for the Eagle Mountain School District due to the location there. Unemployment rates are very low. U.S. rates at 3.7, Texas is at 3.6. The DFW area is at 3.3, and the city of Fort Worth at 3.4. When we're seeing unemployment rates this low, it can be a little bit challenging for the service industries, for construction, for food service, logistics, janitorial, landscaping, even substitute teachers can be in short supply when the unemployment rates are this low. So it is a little bit of a challenge in the labor force area. The housing market is at 34,752 annual starts across the DFW region. Keep in mind back in the previous housing boom in 2005, we were doing 50,000 homes a year. So the market is a much different market. There's a lot more controls in place that are kind of regulating that market. And I do think we're getting close to the maximum number across the DFW region. Now what's unique about the Eagle Mountain Saginaw's picture is it has some of the most affordable price point in the DFW region. So that's one reason why I think we're seeing a surge here is because many of the builders can't build homes less than $350,000 in certain other markets. And so they are able to deliver that product in your school district, which is why we're seeing that surge of the D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is building in 10 subdivisions in your school district. And so that's, just kind of an indication of what we're looking at over the next couple of years. We track the data in 2 ways. We have our Metro Study survey where our employees physically drive the active subdivisions and they're counting how many homes are being started and closed. We also are tracking deed transactions. So we get a monthly deed transaction report for existing homes and new homes. So we do have some little new information on that we're reporting this time. What's going to be very valuable over time is we're going to start geocoding the students to those deed transactions. So then we can look for regeneration. So it's kind of a new piece of data that we're now working with for our clients. Here's a map of those transactions, and those darkest blue neighborhoods are the neighborhoods that are selling the most homes. And so this is existing home sales. You'll notice the resort of Eagle Mountain Lake, the Lake Country Estates, Ranch at Eagle Mountain, the Marine Creek Hills, Remington Point, the Chisholm Ridge, the Lassiter Addition. Those are the neighborhoods that we're seeing the most existing home sales within your district. Now, that doesn't, you can't use those numbers and automatically calculate growth to that, because many times when those homes are selling, there may have been students that were in the home to begin with. But it's something we're gonna watch over time to track regeneration or mobility within your school district. Here's the 5-year change between home sales. Those darkest red neighborhoods have had the biggest increase in home sales from 2012. There again, some of the same neighborhoods. It's the resort at Eagle Mountain Lake. Now that's a little different product, so it's more of a lifestyle, not as many kids up in that area because of the lake and the golf course. So we do see a lower yield there, but we are tracking all of the active subdivisions within your school district. There again, it's Lake Country Estates, Barcy Ranch has seen a big increase in home sales. Now Elkins will jump up on existing home sales because now there's a tremendous amount of new homes being added to Elkins. So we'll see Elkins kind of shoot up this existing home sale list over the next couple of years because they're adding so many new houses to the Eagle Mountain School District zone. Here's just a graph and a table to show you the change between 2012 and 2017. And you can see Lake Point had a significant increase. Comanche Springs had a significant increase. Chisholm Ridge had an increase. Many of those are those areas where they were adding a lot of new homes, and now there's enough mass there to where they're starting to resale homes. In terms of new home closings, Eagle Mountain Saginaw is ranked 7th in the DFW region for annual closings with 1,343. We're going to jump up a couple of spots over the next quarter. So you're going to jump over Little Elm next quarter. You're likely going to jump over Dallas ISD. So you're going to find yourself probably in that 5th spot during the first quarter due to the amount of starts that we're seeing in your school district. We had 1,613 annual starts. We have 1,837 vacant developed lots that are on the ground ready for builders. We have 19,900 futures. Those are those additional phases, preliminary plats, new developments that are coming. You have the 4th highest future lot count in the DFW region. So we know you're going to be adding significant homes for the foreseeable future. Here's a look at the starts and closings by quarter. As I mentioned, in the 4th quarter, we had 518 starts, which was the largest number that we've seen probably all the way back until 2005, back when we had the previous surge. Now, little asterisk there, part of that surge was because the 3rd quarter was a wet quarter. So we had you can notice in the 3rd quarter, we only started 295. Well, that was just kind of pent up demand that couldn't get started because it was so wet, that got started in the 4th quarter. But I think you can see the trend there. We definitely are going to be building more than 1,600 homes in the 2019 year, and there is just a tremendous amount of development activity. The bulldozers are all over the district. We've got several areas. About 2,600 lots are in development that will be delivered within the next 6 to 8 months. Here's a map of your current elementary attendance zones and your top 10 most active subdivisions. The Villages of Eagle Mountain has been your most active subdivision, but you can see it's about to run out of lots, so it's going to drop off that list. It is, you know, a D.R. Horton development, but D.R. Horton is, as I mentioned, active in so many neighborhoods in your school district. They are positioned very well to continue to have a lot of starts in the next several quarters. Your second most active is Barcy Ranch with 132 annual closings. They are delivering additional lots. Copper Creek, they're going to really jump up and stay a very active subdivision. In the top 10 subdivision, it accounts for 70% of all of your single family activity can be found in the top 10. You can see the most active elementary zones are Elkins, number 1. Your second most active area is Comanche Spring. And you've got 4 other zones that are building in that 100 to 200 per year range. That would be Dozier, Lake Point, and High Country. This next map is showing us where the vacant developed lots are. Waters Bend South, they just delivered 179 vacant developed lots. I do believe that is also a D.R. Horton development. So D.R. Horton is you know, positioned to where they slow down in one area, they've got another one coming online. The top 10 subdivisions based on vacant developed lots is 1,219. That's about 65% of where your vacant developed lots are. Your futures, of course, you know, we've had Chapel Hill and Bonds Ranch on this list for a very long time. And we do know eventually they are going to become more active. Right now, they're still pretty slow, but there's 4,713 futures in Chapel Hill that are within the Eagle Mountain Saginaw School District, about 4,065 futures in Bonds Ranch, and then Eagle Ridge, Lake Point, 2,500. The top 10 accounts for about 78%. You'll notice Quarter Horse Estates on there. Quarter Horse Estates has been, it hasn't been building in several years, but they are developing about 300 lots, and they have broken ground and are starting to pave the streets. So with that said, that's likely going to cause me, it may not affect Bryson next year, the next school year, fall of the 19, but I will be making an adjustment to their projections within the next quarter because of the about 300 lots that are going to be delivered there. I'm not sure who the builder is at this point. I don't know that it's going to be D.R. Horton, but it could be another like a Lennar or a production kind of builder that you can just see that area of the school district is very hot for development right now. Here is the table of the single-family data based on your current elementary attendance zones. As I mentioned, Elkins is your most active with 361 annual starts. Second, a close second is Comanche Springs with 355. Third is Dozier with 231. You've got basically 6 elementary zones that are building more than 100 homes per year. So strong growth in 6 elementary zones. And this is what the impact's going to be for the campus projections. You'll notice that next year, Comanche Springs will be your largest elementary school at 761. Lake Point is 758. You'll notice in 2020, we'll have about 9,657 elementary students. You'll have 2 campuses. It'll be that Comanche Springs and Lake Point that have the highest enrollments. I do know you're going to be opening an elementary school likely in that year, which will then provide some relief that we'll build in as we get further along in drawing those attendance boundaries. At the secondary level, of course, Marine Creek Middle School opening next fall with approximately 951 students. And then you'll notice in 2021, Wayside Middle School would be at about 1,062 students. And by 2025, we could have 3 of our middle schools will be right at capacity, and then Wayside will definitely be over capacity by 2025. Your high schools are in pretty good shape for the foreseeable future. They're tracking, you know, pretty close together in their enrollment. By 2023, your largest high school will likely be Boswell High School, but you can see Saginaw High School and Chisholm Trail are both in that 2,300 range. It's really pretty amazing that the enrollments are staying that close between the 3 high schools when those boundaries were drawn, you know, several years ago. But the growth is spread out throughout the district so that it's kind of keeping that growth pretty evenly distributed amongst the high schools.
I have a question on the middle
Yes.
school. It's that it actually shows really a couple stagnant years in there, actually negative growth one year. Is that just the way the classes are?
That's just the way the classes work through. So, you know, when you have a campus that has 3 grades, a large grade working through has a little more impact versus at an elementary, you don't see it as much because there's, you know, 6 grades. So those large grades kind of work themselves out during that period. But a 3 grade configuration causes there to be those little swings. Good question.
And also, when you look at Wayside, I don't worry about that because we designed the attendance zones with rebuilding Wayside. And when we do that, it adds more capacity to the building, about a little over 100. So that basically disappears and they'll all be blocked together, hitting that capacity at the same time.
Well, in summary, the Fort Worth unemployment rate is below 3.5%, so we've got a very good economy in the DFW region. Annual home sales in the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD have increased by about 1,350 units since 2010. So we definitely have seen a surge in the housing in the school district. The most home starts are in Elkins Elementary Zone during the fourth quarter. I see that being the case for the next several quarters. The Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD has roughly 1,800 lots to build on, but there is groundwork underway on 2,670 lots that will be likely delivered within the next 6 to 8 months. Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD can expect an increase of about 3,300 students during the next 5 years, and that'll put our enrollment in 2023-24 at 23,282. Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD is projected to enroll about 26,600 students in the next 10 years during the 2028-29 school year.
Bob, I noticed that with Elkins, even though it has the most home starts, it's still, the capacity was still there. It never did show that it needed, that was gonna reach capacity, did it?
Well, it's growing at a pretty good clip, but you're right.
Never did
The
show.
capacity is, I'm showing to be at about 736. And this past October's enrollment was right at 360. So it's growing anywhere from 40 to 50 kids a year. And
But it's got the capacity to
It
handle
does.
it appears anyway.
mhm,
Okay.
good question. You know, we're continuing to watch the charters very closely. The charter impact right now is being most impacting the Birdville School District, Fort Worth ISD. The new charter product is IDEA. So the IDEA charters are coming into the DFW region. They're not in your area, but we are watching them like a hawk to see where they're going to land. They're building in along 121, and they're building in Fort Worth. And so it's going to have a huge impact on those two school districts. But right now, we don't see any new charters coming into your area during the next couple of years. But should a new charter surface in the area, it'll be one we'll immediately make adjustments to.
You don't have any advance notice of those any more than we do, I guess.
Unfortunately, you know, TEA doesn't do us a lot of favors when it comes to charter announcements. Many times we just get the county that it is located in, and then we have to go through the cities to find any plating information. So that's how we find it, is through the plating process.
Are they mainly building new facilities? Because that's.
IDEA
part
is
of it.
building new facilities.
They're not buying old.
They're not buying old.
Old stores or
no.
grocery stores.
I mean, there are charters that will do that, and so we will be watching. I'm warning districts when a grocery store goes empty. We've got one in Keller, the Albertsons on Golden Triangle just went down. So that's one that could easily surface as a charter. It could also surface as a church sometimes. So it is something that we do watch.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. I thank you for allowing me to present the 5 o'clock session.
You bet. Thanks. Our next report is our operations report. Mr. Welch.
We have a few slides to present to you tonight. First one up, we have Marine Creek. Let's see, wait a minute, I think he's jumped ahead on me a little bit. Make sure he's, yeah. We have Marine Creek Middle School, and obviously it's been raining, but we've been concentrating mostly inside it, obviously because of the rain. That gives you a view of the gym, and so I do have installed irrigation on the south and west of the building, not the gym, so that's kind of a separate part of Area D. The subfloors are in, the main floor's in now, and also if you look at that, you can see the bleachers. The gentlemen are installing the bleachers. So it's becoming one of those first areas that is getting complete. And then in the courtyard, you have a canopy, so we'll be installing those, the roofs on those, and ties to, on your right, you see the cafeteria.
Is that a bus pickup or
No, that's the courtyard.
just a courtyard? Okay.
That's the courtyard, so that's a small little eating area where the kids can go outside, so the sun's not on them all the time.
Okay.
And this is the fine arts area between the choir and the band, and they've installed the casework, which is the backpack area. more of the area in the fine arts. This will be the workroom area. And this is looking from the second floor down to area A, and that's the media center. So you can see in certain areas they're doing the sheet rocking on the first and second floor. Also, they're installing the stone against, and then you can also see the curtain wall, which is the main glass structure starting to come in. And there's the front of the building. So completely different once they get the glass in there and how it projects. And that's just working on the front entrance. And again, wanted to point out the glass, how that's coming in and sealing up the building. This is area C, which will be the last part to be complete. So I skipped the area B this week this month on the sides because moved to C to show that the first floor has the sheetrock, the tape bedding. So it is moving along, but this will be one of the last ones we finish up. And then on the second floor, you got the more ductwork, texturing, and sheetrock. On the field events, you see the runways for the jumping events, the pole vault. And also, if you look closely, you can notice that the dark soil, so they've already, the landscapers come in and put the topsoil back on the property. And on this one, maybe when it stops raining, we'll pour the tennis courts. We've been trying to do it for 2 weeks, but it's a massive pour, so there's 3 large pads out there, so they'll start around 11 p.m. and they'll finish about 12 hours later, and they'll do one each day.
That's not holding anything up, though.
Sorry?
That's not holding anything up, though,
No,
right? I mean,
no, it's a standalone. Oh, any questions on the, as far as, we're moving right along. Again, we'll put the furniture in June. There's no delays that we can't overcome. We've kind of put that in the schedule.
That's the main question. Is it gonna be ready to go?
Gonna be ready.
Starts? And that.
Copper Creek. So this is an important week for Copper Creek. Obviously, it'll be for the board's consideration to name a general contractor tonight. TMP is already working with the electrical provider, so the developer that we bought the land from has to provide that. So they're finishing those touches. And then also working with Encore. I mean, it took us 6 to 8 months to even get the electricity out to the main at Marine Creek, whereas this time it's already ahead of the game, and it makes it a lot easier on the project when you have the permanent electricity. And then on March 1st is Friday, we'll get the notice to proceed as soon as we get the contract signed. So it's a quick turnaround. The next part that we'll go into is kind of the projects we started talking about in September when we received how much money we'd have for this next year. And so,
Wait just a second on Copper Creek. He can add that now to his forecast. Bob Tippleton could go back in and put Copper Creek rehab
Yes.
attendance.
yes.
So once we proceed with this, he can add that in there. I think that'll change some of the numbers here too.
Well, is Bob still here?
No.
Okay. Of all the things you saw in the elementary, with the 3 remaining elementaries that we have in the bond program, you would probably not in 10 years, or at least 8, you will not see any of that.
Okay.
That's all accounted for.
All right, thank you.
I just don't think we have enough land to move past that very quickly. We'll need another bond in 5 or 6 years, but the 3 remaining should take us a long ways out.
All right.
So when we started looking at the future projects that we have, this is the Highland one that we started last month. And so you're gonna see some, since you don't have to build an envelope, it's already there, you just have to do the demolition part of it. So that's the sign that they have out in front in both these schools. This happens to be Highland, they have one at Creekview. And to the right, you can kind of see the fenced in area. They have a small contained where they have a lay down area. And unfortunately, these guys are having to do a little bit of work in solid rock. That's Highland. So I've intermingled both these pictures because they're doing the same things at the same locations. Unfortunately, Highland has a lot more rock, but they've already demoed it. They've got the new metal framing in, and you can start to see some of the sheetrock on this project in this picture. But they're tracking well within the first month. Again, same thing here, the new framing coming in. More sheetrock. And again, drywall is just kind of repetitive. As you can see, it's progressing in all areas. Any questions on Highland and Creekview? Gilliland, the carpet will be this summer, so it's not we're not pressing that over at this point. The security upgrades. So this is the 18 locations we have where it's up for your consideration tonight to name a general contractor. So for the last 5 months, we've been working on designs, things we want on those areas. So that'll come to y'all tonight for y'all's consideration. The Bryson, Eagle Mountain, Elkins, Boswell renovation, that'll again come to y'all tonight for consideration. And then later on, Aaron's gonna add a few more serving lines to this plan this summer. That'll be at Highland and Creekview, which will come a little bit later time for y'all's consideration when we do that. And same thing, shade structures. We have some vendors. We have 4 quotes from approved vendors on buy board, so we'll be moving forward with those, and those are the locations where we'll be doing that. At Chisholm Ridge, Eagle Mountain, Remington Point, and Gilliland. Any questions on any of those projects?
No, sir.
Okay. I think the third thing I have is transportation. Yes, I'm trying to close this out. Transportation, Gold Star. So we have our 3-year contract is up, and we have a 3-year contract with 2 years. We have one each year we can renegotiate for a total of 5, or a total of 3 and 2 for a total of 5 years. So we worked very hard to keep our wages up, our bus driver wages up. But again, it's a very competitive market we're dealing with. The district to the north dealt with that issue last summer. The one to the east is going through a bid process right now. So I'm sure that price, that starting wage will come into play there and affect us at some point in that. When we think about our fleet, we've had our fleet since 2009 or 2009 models. So half of that fleet we've replaced with the propane buses and a few diesel buses. So we've got some buses that are, they're at 10 years old. So there's about 40 of them. So at some point, we're gonna have to think about phasing those out and getting the new buses. And it kind of reminds me as I get the phone calls and y'all hear about them, when the bus breaks down, and the last couple of years we're having more of that, especially on some trips. So that's just, we're getting a good value for what we're paying, but at the end, there's a cost benefit to that. So we need to probably come back and reconsider looking, maybe replacing some of our buses or phasing those at some point.
Is there anything in the renegotiated contract that could assist us with that, or
Yeah, we could, yes,
in the 2-year coming, okay.
we could consider that if we wanted to. At some form of percentage, there's 40 of them, maybe 10 of them, and work that into the contract if we felt like we needed to do that.
Yeah, you just ought to consider it, I guess, if that's an option we should keep open.
We can set the standards just like we did when we added air to all the buses. And when we added the propane buses, we added it into the contract. So we can add that as we wish, and it just depends on how aggressive we want to be in adding them. And we'll work that
And how
out.
receptive they are.
And how receptive. So far, they've been pretty receptive. It's just everything has a cost, and we were willing to accept that with the air. Propane, we looked at the ROI on it and realized that it was going to be worth it in the long run. So we feel like they will be. I know in our preliminary conversations, it's going really well.
Okay.
So.
When does that have to be decided? When is there, I'm sure
We have
there's a
several,
renewal
we have
date.
about 2 or 3 months on that.
So expect a report in 2 or 3 months to,
I'll come back every month and give y'all an update.
great.
Kind of get some guidance which way I feel like we need to go. Work on that. Any other questions on that?
thank you, Cleve. Next report is Report B, the Finance Report. Mr. Shealy.
Got a short PowerPoint to talk about where we are. It's always fun in a legislative year to try to figure out what they're gonna do going forward. We've been paying attention and watching committee meetings and talking to people, and so far, everything's moving and nothing's moving. There was a school finance committee report. The school finance committee has asked that their recommendations be adopted as presented, that they don't want runs made before they put the bill together. That's not gonna happen. There are a lot of pieces in there that have to do with eliminating the lag money, which we have. If they would transition in, we'd be okay, because once we hit it, we're not getting that much more from it. There's some talk about increasing the basic allotment, but there's also talk about scaling back the property tax cap. There's a lot of pieces in there that they can't move forward with it as presented, but that's what they want to do. The two big issues we've been facing have been the property tax cap, which is actually it's actually a revenue cap. And so instead of capping your homesteads at 2.5%, they're going to cap the amount we can increase revenue by 2.5%. So instead of being beneficial primarily to homeowners, the benefit is spread amongst all taxpayers. So actually the people that will get the least benefit from this bill the way it's written are the homeowners. It's not what it's advertised, but that's what's going to come out of it. This was coming really fast and it has completely stalled. I do not know why it has stalled, but it has stalled. It hasn't made it to the floor of the Senate. They haven't suspended rules. It was a pretty negative committee meeting. But at this point in time, I think some people are realizing that if they do this, they're going to upset every county commissioner in the state of Texas and every mayor in the state of Texas. They actually haven't given the rules that we're going to work under. Those are not included in the law. They keep saying, well, we'll worry about that later. I'm comforted.
Mr. Shealy, I just want to publicly commend Judge Whitley, our county judge, for going and giving testimony to the committee, and he was very direct about the effect on counties and cities and school districts, and also very direct about the information that had been provided that he was having to base everything off of. And I appreciate it, because we know there's been several times publicly he's talked about the fact that the actual hidden recapture is that all growth has been going to the state to fund other non-educational items, probably needy items, but nevertheless that recapture is already there, and the misnomer that the growth is all staying local, that when people's tax bills go up, that those dollars stay in the local school district where they're being taxed, and saying that that's not accurate. And he's been very good at that. I just want to again say publicly thank you to him, because it's a very bold move, and he was under some very, very strong attacks at that committee hearing and before that time. And so I just want to make that comment there.
He has been a very articulate champion for local government. A lot of the pushback on the property tax revenue cap has been the fact that they want to put the cap in place before they decide what they're going to do for school finance. And we've talked to several people down there, including a lot of our own representatives and senators. And the consensus that we're getting back is that they really don't want to hamstring local government, that there is money available, that they would like to put it into the basic allotment, that they do need to decide what they're going to do before the 2.5% revenue cap is put in, which I think is part of what's moderating this. And we have had conversations with Representative Krause and Representative Guerin, and with Senator Powell and Senator Nelson, and they've all been very supportive. Like I said, nothing's moving, which at this point may be a good thing.
And so 2.5, I'm sure we told them what that would be, but like last year we had 10, 12%. I know that's property tax. I know we're talking about a different deal, but if we had revenue limited to 2.5%, what would it have cost us?
Well, with us, it's not, and this is where they're already in fallback position. Because now they're saying, well, that doesn't apply to new growth. Well, there's no definition for new growth, but I'm assuming that means it's new construction, which for us was about 400 million last year. So that wouldn't be subject to it. We also get enough of an increase that allows us to maintain the same level of revenue per student as we did the year before, plus 2.5%. So, and depending on how you define, because you have to move that then into weighted average daily attendance and all those good things. It's a very complex formula. I had to think really hard as I was stating that because I can get lost in the wording. So while it sounds like a 2.5% cap, it would be more than 2.5%, but it would have cost us last year probably about 2.5 to 3 million as best I can determine.
Well, with no rules, I mean, it's not really,
But do we have the number, to your point, do we have the number on existing homes, what that increase was? Because I know that 10
Yes.
had the new home, so what
Yeah.
was that, it's not 2.5, it was greater,
Well,
but it was what?
we went up just right under $1 billion. 400 million of that was new construction. The other was growth in existing properties. Of that growth in existing properties, about 55% of that, which would be about 315 million, was homes, residential. And then the rest was split between commercial and mineral and business personal property. So we are looking, we do have the numbers from last year. Like I said, we're looking at this because the new growth was not a part of the original bill. Now they're saying it's going to be part of the bill. We do get additional money for additional students, and it is also based on what the legislature does. So we're struggling to come up with a number. Once again, I try to use existing law when I'm doing our forecasts, but I can't ignore what may come. So I am running side numbers that I'll tell you what the impact may be, but I doubt if I'll present them unless you want me to.
There's
No,
also
that
not,
wouldn't be fair. I mean, it wouldn't be
it's
accurate.
moving too
Yeah.
much. It could have moved today. Also, we don't have clarification on the INS because there is perception by many that this would affect both sides of the tax rate. And when we pass unlimited bonds, that essentially means that the district's obliged to raise the tax rate to the number required to pay the bill. And obviously, we stay within the 50-cent debt test, and, you know, we've never had that issue that we can't pay our bills. We were very careful about that, but also this has never touched the INS side. And so that's a huge concern, because if they touch both sides of the formula, that essentially would affect fast growth districts and, well, really every district in the state that's passed a bond, particularly fast growth, because we have to build early. For those of you that saw the report earlier, we have to build buildings before they come, you have to be ready. And so there's a period of time as you transition into those new buildings that you're not at 100% capacity, but when you're finished, you are, like Greenfield, Saginaw Elementary, Northbrook Elementary. And at some point, you lock the attendance zones and you move on. And for fast growth districts, that takes time to get to that point.
To limit the growth on the debt service side would be or could be considered interference with the contract because the terms and conditions were made under a different set of rules. School districts are the only entities that actually have two different tax rates, M&O and INS. Everyone else has their debt service folded into their one basic rate, which is why I think they very quickly moved school districts out of the primary bill, but they haven't defined how they're going to treat us. The other bill that was barreling down the tracks at us, and it also is stalled, is the $5,000 teacher raise.
Not as of this afternoon.
Not as of this
It
afternoon.
was just, that's how fast it moves. It's been voted on 15-0 at the Senate, so it's sorry to, just want to make sure.
As of this afternoon, it was kind of under control.
Summary, I didn't go back and read the specifics. If I missed it, y'all tell me. Pardon me.
accomplish it tomorrow, it might be another, it could be another day.
Another amount.
There's a lot of issues with this, and we, once again, have been down talking to several of our representatives and senators. The bill was actually crafted by Senator Nelson, and it's just a straight, flat-out, fully funded $5,000 raise per teacher. Does not include librarians, does not include counselors, does not include campus personnel. It's a $5,000 raise for teachers, and they haven't really defined that, but for teachers.
Yeah, I think there have been some last-minute adjustments, but I can't say that those were adjusted or not. And it also doesn't take care of the TRS, or I did not take care of the TRS requirement that was gonna be about $800,000 in addition. However, that may have been addressed, so we'll send out a summary of what was passed by the Senate, so you have that.
The cost to the
Out of
district.
committee, though.
Out of committee, well, no, it went to the committee and it went to the Senate. My understanding, it was voted on this afternoon, but I'll have to look.
I must have missed that one.
That's okay.
Yeah, it passed
The-
unanimously.
The several problems with this, first of all, the $5,000 raise is a separate funding element. It's not part of the basic allotment. So separate funding elements are subject to having be renewed every biennium. This biennium, yes, we have extra funds. If we don't have extra funds next biennium, then this goes into play. And I'm not sure how you tell, well, you can't tell teachers their salary's going down, which means we would simply have to shoulder the responsibility for making the payment. We did tell them they had not covered any of the payroll costs that are associated with salary, and my understanding is they did put that in. We do want it to be part of the basic allotment. I haven't seen that happen yet. This is moving very quickly. In the Senate, there is no partner bill in the House at this point in time, and nobody in the House is really talking about it one way or the other. My preference would, if they give us, if we were to raise teacher salaries $5,000, that would cost us right at almost $7 million with benefits. If they were to cut property taxes or hold that revenue cap down to 2.5, that would be another, I think it's 1.9 billion for the biennium. This one is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.7. So you've quickly gone over 5 billion, which is the total amount the Senate was going to put into education. These two are going to take care of, I don't know what else is left if these go through. So I don't know how it's going to impact us. I can't see if this goes through, there will be a significant additional change, which is why we're staying with current law. You heard Bob tonight. We're looking at funding growth and school operating costs. This year we are opening Marine Creek Middle School. That carries a cost of right at $1.5 million with core personnel, and one of would be a librarian and counselors and assistant principals, and there's multiple assistant principals, but they're not part of a ratio. There's just how many we staff. It's about a $1.5 million by the time you put in the custodians and the utilities and all that. So we've factored that into the budget. The other element we're looking about is the inefficiency, because as much as we're moving existing students into a new building, and to an extent teachers are going to move, you now have smaller campuses, and you don't move teachers with kids. If you can get 80% efficiency, that's great. So there's going to be some additional teachers, and I don't remember the numbers, but I think it was in the neighborhood of 20-some, which is, with growth and everything, is pretty close to kind of what we expected. A little more than I expected or hoped for, but not unreasonable. So at this point in time, the opening of Marine Creek Middle School is tracking about like I hoped it would, or like we estimated it would. Core costs are about what we estimated it would be. We're all, most of my numbers are doing good. The one number which I'm going to have to recast, and I made myself a note, is the revenue number, because I did not anticipate 700 plus kids coming in. So I'm going to redo the summary of finance, and that's a positive. That's a positive change. Like I said, Marine Creek Middle School is opening. We continue to have an increase in special populations. And I'm working with Heather to try to capture a way to forecast this information, because historic numbers do not track in a forecasting model. We're also noticing two elements that we have never had to deal with before. And one of them is non-special ed campus behavior. We are having a significant influx on kids that are causing a problem. And one of the areas that we're seeing it this year is in workman's comp. Our workman's comp expense may go up $350,000 to $400,000. And it is tied very heavily to campus instructional personnel, like 90% plus. And these are people who are being injured just in the normal day-to-day activity at the school. I've been out to visit the schools. We've looked at the kinds of injuries. Their kids biting, they're picking up sharp objects like scissors, they're picking up heavy objects like tape dispensers, they're throwing themselves at teachers. We had one that was a broken leg from, I think, a 5-year-old. They're young, generally kindergarten, first, second. We're gonna have them for another 15 plus years. We gotta figure out how to work with these kids, but it's an element we have never had to deal with before, and the cost is being exhibited right now in workman's comp. But there's also gonna be a lot of lost instructional days at school because of the subs that we're having to pull in. Another element that we're looking at is cybersecurity. And I know Kirk is looking at this almost on a daily basis. We are being attacked relentlessly. I'm sure you've seen the newspaper where $1 million went out of a school district to some gentleman in Florida. We had the situation that we caught with the guys out of San Francisco that were never apprehended. You're seeing more and more and more of this. They're actually getting really good at how they do it. They're starting to go after our vendors as well, saying they're from Eagle Mountain ISD and that they double paid a bill, and until they refund that amount, we're not gonna do business, and they're giving them a bank account to send that money. And I mean, it's really becoming, it's a war. I don't know how else to put it. We did, for the first time, purchase cybersecurity insurance, which, if we have a financial loss, will cover it, plus they will also cover the cost of reestablishing whatever materials we have lost. We're still evaluating this. Kirk and I have talked about it. It's a new reality that we have never seen before. As I said, we're going to run all the models on existing law. Any potential changes, we'll try to give you the magnitude that may be associated with that change. I really don't want to start running models on bills that may or may not have a chance to pass, and if they pass, the governor may or may not sign them. Growth factors, location of attendance zones, and additional students. The demographer brought his numbers. I know Debbie's going to be looking at staffing, and staffing is still somewhat fluid, but we have come up with at least educated estimates, and those are the estimates we'll be using in our forecasting for the upcoming year. And they're pretty close to what we thought they would be. However, when we go to 700 plus kids, they're gonna go up, but so will revenue. Like I said, we're gonna have to come up with a way to address the growth in special ed, the behavior of some of the kids that are not special ed, and cybersecurity, and we're gonna be trying to get a handle on those numbers coming up for the future years. They do have a cost, and it is significant. Like I said, workman's comp is gonna go from we've held between 300 and 350,000 for the last 5 years. It could very well hit 800,000 this year. We're trying to keep it in the 700,000 range, but it's gone up pretty quick. Anybody have any questions or thoughts as we go into the budget season?
I agree you should wait until either law is passed, or, and I know there's some firms out there that help school districts make a run and give it to the legislatures, perhaps before they pass the bill, but I hope that you see fit not to spend a lot of time on that until it gets closer to fruition.
Yeah, it's you kind of plan both. You need to be aware and you need to be prepared. You need to have an idea of what's going on. You don't want to be surprised as it comes through, but you don't want to fixate on what may happen that there isn't anything. So it's a balancing act. I probably don't do it as well as I should, but I'll give it the best shot.
And we do get calls from legislators to ask us what our thoughts are on particular legislation, so, and we've shared that when they've contacted us, and we have at the meeting later this week with newly seated Senator Powell that will be meeting with me, and we'll have a number of items. Dr. Hughes put together some information that she shared last week along with Jim and Austin, which was really helpful as well. So I agree. I mean, nothing's in print right now. It's all in pencil. So, and we have many months, several months to go before this is going to be done. So we won't be locked in until late.
Nothing will happen till the last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so much variance in what's going on. I think it's a real good chance we go into a special session. That's one of the other things we've asked them is do not wait till the last minute and throw this at us. If you're gonna put in late, push it back to the second year of the biennium. They doubt if we'll do it, but we're asking for a couple of things. Bond update. There's been a lot of movements, and we've been talking with our underwriters. The Federal Reserve, last time we spoke, was looking at between 2 and 3 interest raises in 2019. Now they're looking at 1 to 2 interest rate decreases in the discount rate. That doesn't directly impact long-term rates that we use for bonds, but it does have kind of a lingering effect. And we're watching that really close because as much money as we have to issue, even 5 or 10 basis points is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There have been a large number of bond elections. There have been several elections in excess of $1 billion. They're mostly passing. The growth in the state of Texas is relentless. There is a lot of money that has been approved by taxpayers but not issued. We're going to try to pick our spots where when we go to the market, we do have as little competition as possible. And we'll be trying to hit, we kind of have an idea based on the last couple of years, but so does everybody else. So we're gonna try to hit generally where we have, which is between Thanksgiving and the middle of January, depending on what interest rates in the market is doing. But that's a kind of a lull period where we can be a primary issuer on those dates. The advanced refundings, the tax treatment has pushed those back. We don't have the opportunity to save the tens of millions of dollars that we were saving for the last 3 or 4 years. However, there is a possibility that we could shorten the call period. Normally we use a 10-year call. If you shorten the call period to where you can get those bonds in quicker, which then it's not an advance refunding and it is tax-free, there's a premium for that. So you're playing a game, but we're trying to figure out what the premium is going to be to shorten the call on those between maybe 6 to 8 years, which would give us more flexibility in a refunding scenario if interest rates drop. We're just looking at it, haven't made a decision. I'm listening at this point in time, but, and if we get to a point where we're seriously considering this, we will bring it to you for a full explanation as to how this would work going forward. We do have some pretty heavy demands in the next couple of years. Cleat's going to keep building elementary schools, and we have a lot of remodeling. We're trying to get ready for high school number 4 and also for the Wayside move. That school needs to be updated as soon as we can. January marks the 5th month of the fiscal year. We're approximately halfway through the school year. We do have a budget amendment tonight where we're taking care of a lot of housekeeping issues, maybe an occasional expense we forgot to put in there, some things that are going better than we expected, and Jane will go over those later. We have a lot of positive areas in the budget to actual. They're not included in the amendment. I'm waiting to see how they shake out a little bit longer. We did have, and I think it's at the bottom here, the final decision came in on the gas compression equipment, and it was decided in favor of the taxpayers. The impact on us is going to be, we had estimated $769,000. It's actually $756,000. We have contacted our auditor to update our numbers since 2012 on taxes, which are then going to be uploaded to TEA, and then we will be contacting TEA because we should get most of that money back. But there is going to be a process, a delay in how fast TEA recalculates that and then gives us the money. It's not going to be soon, but it will happen. So we're working on that. Like I said, it was pretty close. We were a little better than we expected, but we're pretty much right on what we did expect.
We're writing them a check at some point for that amount.
What they'll do is they'll withhold our collections so that they will just, Tarrant County won't send us $756,000 of our collections. So we don't have to write a check, but we still don't have the money. I will keep you once again posted as to what the impact is going to be and any information that we get with respect to timing. That is quite a bit of money. Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Dawkins. It is currently 5:58 p.m. on February 25th, 2019. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in the closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, purpose of deliberating a purchase, exchange, lease of real property, 551.074, purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, reassignment of duties or discipline of a public official. Also, under consideration now is contract renewals for district employees, 551.075 for the purpose of deliberating regarding deployment or specific occasion for implication of security, and 551.082 considering discipline of a public school child. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on February 25th at 7:01 p.m. and will now proceed to the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome, everybody, to our February meeting. And to start our meeting off, we have Eagle Mountain Elementary. Jason Beatty, please come forward with your students. Look at all those kids. All crew.
There's lots of questions from this group is, what can I expect? I said, it's my first time to do this as well. So we'll get through it together, boys and girls. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come tonight and start your meeting off with the pledges. At this time, I'd like to introduce our students. This is our student council from Eagle Mountain Elementary. These are 5th grade students. We do have with us tonight as their sponsor is Shelley Kiefer, our counselor, and I'd like to introduce Shelley, along with Dana Schweitzer, our assistant principal. At this time, I'd like to also ask the parents of these students to please stand up so we can recognize them because they are fabulous students. So parents, if you have a student up here, please stand up. And at this time, I'm going to let Ava start out and introduce herself, and then we'll begin with the pledges.
Hello, my name is Ava Swin. Hello, my name is Lex Robertson.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Salanton.
Hello, my name is Claire O'Connor.
Hello, my name is Abby Munt.
Hello, my name is Tatum Sargent.
Hello, my name is Macy Malmstrom.
Hello, my name is Jack Garcia. Hello, my name is Joel Horton.
Hello, my name is Jake Bell.
You get to hold it now, Jake. if you would please rise and join us for the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now for the Texas flag.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much, and if you will join us in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Boys and girls, you can have a seat. Before I step down, I just want to tell this is an amazing campus, an amazing group of kids. They do a lot of things with our student council and our leadership. I know Mrs. Ring had an opportunity to visit with some of these during the January, but these kids have done an amazing job with their social, just helping us with projects around the school and I'm very blessed to be a part of this campus, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Eagle Mountain Elementary. That's where I went to school, so it's been a great campus since the 60s when I went there. My sisters went there, my kids went there, so I'm glad Eagle Mountain Elementary was here tonight to open our ceremonies. Thank you very much, and thank you, parents, for bringing them. We do have some special recognitions tonight. The first is an All-State Band honoree, Ben Simmons from Chisholm Trail High School, and Mr. Sean Bell.
Good evening.
I'm assuming that wasn't a surprise that I called him out.
Not
there.
at
Okay,
all.
good.
I couldn't sleep last night. I was so excited to get to recognize Mr. Ben Simmons. We have one All-State member that ran the gauntlet and made it through the grueling audition process, if you will, that starts at the beginning of the year. And Mr. Ben Simmons, Ben, come on up here, is our All-State Band member from Chisholm Trail High School. But there's sort of a special aspect to this because Chisholm Trail High School has had other All-State members since the school opened, but they've always been brass players. And Mr. Ben Simmons is the first woodwind player in the school's history of making All-State Band. And I got to share this with you. I don't know if Ben knows these figures. The 2018 SAT national average was 1060. The Texas average, 1020. The Texas All-State overall average for all bands, choirs, and orchestras, 1308. And the 5A Symphonic Band, right, that you were a member of, 1319. So, woo, this guy gets it done in the classes too, right? I'd like to recognize Ben's parents, Chad and Lisa Simmons. You might recognize his mother because she's been around these parts, right? Worked for the school district for a number of years. I would also like to recognize his very dedicated and talented band directors who helped make this possible. Mr. Derek Doyle, head band director. Mr. Tyler and the guy that said, yes, we will have an All-Stater, Mr. Walter Behringer. So we're very proud of Ben and wanted to recognize you tonight. He performed an incredible concert a week before last in San Antonio and had a great experience. Any comments?
Congratulations, Ben.
Absolutely. You want parents? Or? parents of Mandarin, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Congratulations again, Ben. Next is Megan. You have a special recognition?
We do. We have a special recognition from Prairie Vista tonight. We would like to recognize Prairie Vista Middle School student R.J. Moylan for receiving the Jostens Renaissance National Student of the Month Award in January. Jostens Renaissance National Student of the Month recognizes a deserving student who's made an impact within their school or community through Jostens Renaissance programs. As you know, Jostens Renaissance is a program that focuses on recognizing students and staff. The core program revolves around the 5 R's: what you respect, reward, recognize, and reinforce that equal results. RJ was selected based on his exceptional dedication and commitment to the values of Prairie Vista Middle School and Jostens Renaissance. He's been involved in efforts to ensure the climate and culture within the building is focused around the success of all students and staff. So at this time, we'd like to ask RJ to come up. We're very proud of you, RJ. Proud of you for your service to your school and your community. His mom is also a teacher, Cindy. So we're excited to have you here and recognize them. If y'all would stand and be recognized as well. He's also here with Dr. King is here as well to recognize him for this award. So can we get a quick picture? You up for that? You want to take a picture? Okay.
Thank you.
Got the family there. All right, everybody switch in and take a step to your right. Okay. Look right here. It's not real big. Thank you very much. Congratulations, RJ.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming, parents, and bringing him. With the board's indulgence, I'm going to move something up in the agenda, the superintendent announcements. Dr. Chadwell?
Well, we had an opportunity I didn't realize we would have until I got to see some of our friends here tonight to recognize them for traveling to Austin early this morning, and they don't know what I was going to say until I just said it, so they're looking at me wishing that I wasn't talking right now, but I am. They got up very early this morning and went down to down to Austin for the PTA Legislative Day to advocate for you students and for educators that are in here, all of us really in our respective work. They were a part of many activities. I know Mr. Scheid was very, let's say, how to put this? Pardon me? Vocal, okay? Direct in a very positive way and with specific people to share the importance of supporting us. So I just wanted to acknowledge y'all. Many of us in this room are members of the PTA. We know how important the PTA is for all of our campuses. They advocate for us. They support us. It's more than just providing a meal. It's more than all the other activities they do. All those things are wonderful. It's what they do with their discretionary time, how much they focus on us. And then today for y'all to go down and again, represent Eagle Mountain Saginaw down in Austin. We want to thank you. If you don't mind, please stand and just be recognized. Appreciate it. Thank you. And also, this is relevant to a few students in here, I believe, but we also had just this last week, the Fine Arts Showcase. If you had the opportunity to be at that, it was incredible. What a wonderful evening to show the talent of Eagle Mountain Saginaw students. That's really what it's about. There are those moments in time where we do all this hard work and then we watch them perform, whether it be in an academic setting, whether it be an athletic setting, or in a fine arts setting, or any other extracurricular. It's about those moments in which the lights go on and it's all you, and then you perform. And to be able to look back on that and to see what it took to get to that point is always something I always enjoy. One of the things I actually really love watching is band practice, because band directors are incredible at being able to take students and just minute changes and alterations to bring them to this high level of skill and this growth. And of course, we do that with many other areas, including athletics and dance and other areas too. You see it really amazing. You see it in band, and I think it's because the focus on this, what that perfect note is, that clarity and all those things, and it's just incredible to see that. And so the Fine Arts Showcase was that opportunity for us to see that. If you were a part of that, I want to thank you for being a part of that wonderful event that we've done. I want to acknowledge Sean Bell for putting that together, and really look forward to next year. As many of you know, we say this ad nauseum, we're the only school district that is at the Bass. And I think that's something that says something about our community, and thank you for those of you that were a part of that.
Thank you, Dr. Chabot. We have a special introduction. Mr. Dwayne Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb, board members, and Dr. Chadwell. The operations department is very excited to welcome Ms. Holly Smith to our team and to the Eagle Mountain Saginaw family. Holly is our new coordinator of health services. She comes to us with 11 years of experience as a nurse, most recently 5.5 years in Crowley ISD, and prior to that she was a neonatal ICU nurse at Texas Health Resources. So we're very confident that she's going to do great things in the department and be a great asset to the district. So.
I'd just like to say I'm happy to be here and thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome. Thank you. No one signed up to speak, so we're going to move to some action items, but I'm going to pause just a moment. If anybody would like to stay, you're welcome to stay, but it's a good time if you want to take your children home or get up and leave. That's up to y'all. All right, our first action item is to act on recommendations of the 1819 Board Naming Committee. The members were myself, Mr. Tim Daughtry, and Ms. Paige Ring, and we have two recommendations to bring to the board for consideration. I will make each one as a motion, actually, or the first one is that we are going to name our next, an elementary school, Lake Country Elementary School. Its colors will be gold and black, and their mascot will be the Lions. And that is made as a form of a motion from the naming committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Second is, you may have to do this one. I'm going to let Paige do this one.
Okay. You just want me to read it and then make a motion afterwards? Okay. Sharon Young talked about business classes as part of the Career and Technology Education Program at Boswell High School for 45 years. Joining Boswell in 1968 and serving her entire career there, she retired at the end of the 2012-2013 school year and then continued her service as a substitute teacher throughout the district throughout 2017. When asked about her influence, Principal Nika Davis didn't hesitate to share how much Sharon has meant to the Pioneer family. Ms. Davis said, Sharon Young is small in stature but big in heart. She has been such a positive impact on generations of students, staff, and the entire Boswell community. You're getting me emotional too, stop. During her service here at Boswell and in EMS ISD, she epitomized a true commitment to her students and a passion for teaching and an unrelenting drive to promote school culture through school spirit. She may have taught the intricacies of business in her classes, but her students always learn so much more. She is truly an example of the pioneer spirit, and we are proud to honor her legacy.
So the motion from the board naming committee is to name the courtyard, internal courtyard at Boswell after Sharon Young. Sharon Young, this would have been done years ago, but our policy is not to name something after someone who's still working, and even though she retired, she continued to come back and educate our students and lead our teachers and our staff there at Boswell. So she recently has had some health issues, and she's not in very good health, so we wanted to go ahead and do that. If any of the board members are wondering, not only three of us have known about this. So are there any questions? That was a motion to name the internal courtyard at Boswell after Sharon Young.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Elkins. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Thank you for helping me get through that. Yes.
I am going to ask for those of you that may be onto social media, she does not know this, and so if you would please just give me until, I don't know, 30 minutes after the board meeting to share that word. I would really like to be able to, for her to know that from us first. And just to echo the sentiments that were said, she's an incredible lady, and many of the people in this room know her and have worked with her. I've never seen her have a bad day. She was always willing to serve and is always willing to serve in any way. And so I'm really excited. If you're not sure where the internal courtyard is, it's right by the library and by the bistro area. It's an area that's used right now for classes that will come in and use that as a space to like kind of outdoor class, and they also do a lot of other different events in there. So it's a really pretty space. It's something that people walk by every day, so it'll be a wonderful opportunity to acknowledge her. We will be putting a date out for that event. It's not set at this time.
Thank you. Okay, the next is to act on an 18-19 budget amendment. Mr. Shealy.
I'm going to ask Jane Valdez to come up and run through the budget amendment. The budget amendment is on page 81 of your packet.
Good evening. Just have a few items to present on this month's budget amendment. We have a net increase to the fund balance of $840,000 in the operating fund. The biggest amount there is the increase in investment earnings. The original budget was not anywhere near sufficient. You know, the rates have come up substantially over the last year or two. So that's just my best guess of where we'll end up for the year. So I wanted to go ahead and bring that one forward at this time. We have a couple of small items that are both on the expenditure and the revenue side. We have a donation for a scholarship. You'll see $1,000 going into gifts and bequests, as well as function 11 in the expenditures. And then we have our Bass Hall revenue and expense budget of $9,300. Another large item in the general operating fund is simply a reclassification. This is our first year to be a Chapter 41 district and have to make those payments. When the budget was put together, we originally showed that as a netting against the tax revenue, but the proper accounting treatment is to charge that as an expenditure in function 91. That's a new function for us. So I'm moving just under $730,000 from a contra revenue account down to an expenditure account. In the child nutrition fund, I'm also adding in the investment earnings, estimate about $40,000 for the year. Another reclassification to correct coding is the indirect cost. And I did mention that on the operating side as well. The indirect cost, I believe on the original budget, was just shown as a transfer in and a transfer out from the two funds, but it's more properly recorded as a charge against revenue in the child nutrition fund and actual indirect cost revenue in the operating fund. There's several adjustments in the debt service fund. They will serve to increase the total fund balance a little bit over $1 million. Again, I'm increasing investment earnings by $280,000 for that fund. I'm estimating about $800,000 that we will receive from the state as what they call additional state aid for the increase in the homestead exemption. We've received that the last 2 or 3 years since they increased that exemption. That's about $800,000. Just a small increase. We get the federal subsidy to help us pay the bond payments on a couple of, I believe they were the 2010 bonds, the Build America bonds. Those subsidies have been reduced over the last several years due to the federal sequestration, and that rate was, the sequestrated amount, that's probably not the right word, has been reduced a little bit, so that's adding $6,400 as revenue. And then doing the budget for our bond sale that we completed recently, we have $1.2 million deposited into our fund, which is for capitalized interest to go toward that first bond payment on those. Under expenditures, I'm showing the increase for the payment for those bonds of $1,196,000, and then just a little correction to the amount of the bond payments for $31,500, and increasing miscellaneous bond-related fees by $20,000.
Those are going to offset the ones you just mentioned,
Yes.
D and 2 and the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. Then there's also transfers between functions that are detailed on the spreadsheet that's attached. That's just moving money around to code everything in the proper function.
I move we approve the February 2019 budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion by Page, second by Dick to approve the budget amendment. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 5-0. Now we're going to head into some bids and proposals. There's quite a few of them there that Mr. Shealy has. They start on page 88. So, Mr. Shealy, the first one is to extension of proposal for fire and security alarm parts, supplies, equipment, repair, and monitoring service.
I make a motion to extend the agreement with SAS Security Alarm Service for fire and security alarm parts, supplies, equipment repair, and monitoring services for the second option year to expire April 30th, 2020. The estimated annual total is $135,000.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Dick. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the marching band uniforms for Boswell High School, page 98.
I recommend we award the proposal of marching band uniforms for Boswell High School to Fred J. Miller, Inc. for a total of $177,918.75.
Second.
Motion by Page and second by Tim. Questions on that recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the opening day collections for Marine Creek Middle School Library.
I make a motion to award the proposal of opening day collections for Marine Creek Middle School Library, Follett School Solutions, Inc., for an amount not to exceed $225,000.
Second.
Motion by Maryland, second by Page. Questions on that? Everybody okay? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the Environmental Services Consultant on page 122. Doing a great job, Mr. Shealy.
I make a motion to award the proposal of an environmental services consultant to Terracon Consulting, Inc. for an estimated annual total of $122,420. And this expenditures will be based on the as-need basis.
Second.
By Tim, second by Dick. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. And the last bid and proposal is the extension of depository services. Page 135.
Make a motion to extend the depository services contract with Frost Bank from September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Maryland, second by Page. Question on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Shealy, that went a lot faster than your report.
Try to speed up the report.
All right, we move to awarding contracts, and the first one is Copper Creek Elementary School. Mr. Welch.
Yes, district had 11 qualified responses to Part A on January the 30th. We were very excited about the amount of contractors bidding on our new construction. So even our last couple projects, we've had a strong showing in that CSP market. So we obviously have continued that. The second day, we had two of them didn't turn them in. They were two of the higher bidders on Part A, the first day. So they didn't, in my opinion, probably didn't turn them in on that for that reason. So we evaluated those contractors and came up with a recommendation. Our committee was district personnel and our architect Huckabee. We got together, went through the proposals and came up with a ranking. And we felt like the first one to negotiate would be Poe Construction.
I recommend we enter into negotiations for the contract for Copper Creek Elementary School with the highest ranking contractor, who is Poe Construction Company LP, in the amount of $23,750,000. In the event the district is unsuccessful in negotiating a contract with Poe Construction Company LP, then the board would authorize the administration to cease negotiations and move to the next highest ranking contractor or contractors until a contract can be successfully negotiated. Second.
Motion by Page, second by Marilyn. And the only question I have is would that be the order that is on the spreadsheet? If you don't work it out with Poe, the motion would say you just go right down the line on
The
the
second highest.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just want to make sure. Not that you won't get it worked out. Motion by Page, second by Marilyn. Questions on this contract? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. You opposed, and there are none. Since this was the bid to fund the contract for the school, this would be the board of record for Copper, okay. Next is to award the contract for security upgrades to multiple EMS ISD campuses. I believe this was in your report earlier.
Yes,
But is there something you
touched
wanna
on
add?
it. Basically, we have the schools that are listed that we're going to touch on here. There's 18 of them. So the last 5 months, we've been going through and looking at those locations, pulling our design documents together and assessing that. So we had 3 bidders for the project. And so we looked at their proposals. And one of the things we noticed in the proposals is one of the Philip May construction that we felt like they were missing some things in there. And so there was, based on that, and we verified that they decided to pull out their proposal. And that left us with 2. So when we looked at that, we felt like 308 Construction was the highest ranking at that point.
Have we done work with them before?
No, we have not. But on the last, I want to say at least 2 bids that we had out of Bryson, they've been there, they've been interested in our work. They're doing some work for a district just north of us, a very large district, in this same type of area. Even though they're a small company, the references check out and they've been ahead of schedule. And we did the same process. We had our committee together. We worked with, this time we had BOK Architects working with us on this document.
Because it's what, I mean, I could add them up, but we're talking about touching a lot of campuses, right? 18?
Yes, 18. And none of them rely on basically the school start or not. We start them. Some will finish very quickly. Some might take a little longer. We got a lead time on hardware. So it'll be a drawn out little schedule probably.
All right.
I recommend we enter into negotiations for the contract for security upgrades to multiple EMS ISD campuses as presented with the highest ranking contractor, 308 Construction, in the amount of $2,355,371. In the event the district is unsuccessful in negotiating the contract with 308 Construction, the board also authorizes the administration to cease the negotiations and move to the next highest ranking contractor or contractors until the contract can be successfully negotiated.
Second. Motion by Page, second by Tim. Questions on this? See none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is to award the contract for additions and renovations at Bryson, Elkins, Eagle Mountain, and Boswell High School.
On this project, we had two qualified responses that came in. Again, we used the process. We had district personnel come together with our architect, VOK. Just having two responses, and they also ended up very close in the ranking. So this was a very tight project, and really the biggest thing that makes the whole difference is the number of days. One of them, proposal finishes before school begins, and the other one would be in the middle of October. So 241, I believe, 241 days versus 156. We didn't feel like that the one of 241 was a viable for us. So therefore, it showed in the ranking.
Is that because they may be paying some overtime that, because there was a difference in the.
You know, there's a difference in the price. We're paying a little bit more for these quicker schedule, yes.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we enter into negotiations for the contract for additions and renovations at Bryson, Elkins, Eagle Mountain Elementary Schools, Boswell High School with the highest ranking contractor, ICI Construction, in the amount of $5,460,000. In the event the district is unsuccessful in negotiating the contract with ICI Construction, the board authorizes the administration to cease negotiations and move to the next highest ranking contractor or contractors until the contract can be successfully negotiated.
What he said?
Question.
Okay.
So, let me clarify, please. So, it's just, is it inconvenient or is it costless some other, I mean, tell me again about the money difference is obviously fairly significant, so why are you?
Well, for example, to put in a fire suppression system in there and be able to put that in during when school's going on in September, October, or in first part of August, that's just kind of hard to overcome. And also the gym wouldn't be ready. There'd be components of the school that we would have to find a way to make that work and shift or close down certain areas.
Was that in the bid specs as far as the time you needed it done by?
We had them finishing before school started.
So basically they're out of spec then, is that in essence true? I mean.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised by too.
Yeah.
I had the exact same question.
Yeah, so.
We talked about our objectives, but we didn't have a fixed completion date in the specifications. And so they were able to identify their own schedule for completion and align with the objectives of the district based on
Is there a chance that that would be a negotiable contract term though, and that it might still be the lowest cost provider? If that's the only thing that drove you to that vendor?
Well, it was part of the ranking, so they had to come up with their own schedule. I mean, we evaluate them on the length of their schedule.
But it was a no-go or go with this time for you, sounds like, right? I mean, did they know, were they aware of that, I guess? I mean, I didn't really get that from Lisa, but since you didn't put a dead date on it, you didn't just done by this date.
Well, I'm trying to think back when we had our pre-con meeting, what we explained to them.
We just talked about what the objectives were because of the fact that it was a campus under, it was an occupied campus, and that the complexity of the fire alarm systems and the addition that, you know, it was district's goals and hopes that would be, but we did not have a fixed date. We didn't want to hold them to a fixed date. So they put in their own dates, and the dates were ranked based on the requirements of the project area.
Is that something, or were they even consider this other company, were they consider, I mean, the ranking was very close.
Yeah, they were
I assume
close.
there was
It
other
looks
than-
like that's what drove the determination.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I should know, but is, in the bid ability, we have the ability to go back and, or would we have had the ability to go back and, you know, negotiate a time with them by chance or not?
If we would have ranked them number one, his first ranking, we could have.
I'm struggling with the same thing you are, is that it almost seems like that would be something you could negotiate though, because what we're authorizing you to do is enter into negotiations, and if you could negotiate that.
But you have to do
Time
that
for
with
no-
the first ranked one. I believe, in that you can only
So my question is, did we have the proper ranking criteria if that was a if that was an element we could negotiate?
Well, there was a number of other variables in the ranking that I guess, got me to that final point having to do with their experience in personnel. They're both very closely ranked, and both qualified to do the work, but based on the ranking criteria that ICI ended up as top.
That in itself didn't cause them not to be ranked. From my observation, just looking at the proposal, that wasn't in itself what caused it.
When it really came down to it, I mean, we wanted them to finish before school, but we didn't know how they were gonna put the bid together and how much personnel they were gonna put into it. Our hope was to be completed before school started. That was our hope.
Well, in the negotiations, you could ask them that though also, right? If that was part of their schedule for 156 days, paying overtime or having
Can
more
the price
crews
be,
there.
I'm sorry, can the price be negotiated at this point at all or not?
What are we negotiating?
We're negotiating the contract terms, and the price couldn't be negotiated, I believe.
Can it? It's in the motion. The price is in the
It's
motion.
with ICI, it can be negotiated.
We do have a motion. Tim's made the motion and Marilyn seconded.
But we
Ask all the
state
questions you
yeah,
want.
we stated the motion. It has
Which
the
states
price
they're
of the
ne-
contract in
Yeah,
it.
but it
so-
also states that they're negotiating too in the motion.
Right, the motion.
But yeah, but my question is, can you, if we're stating the price, can we still negotiate the price? We can't, okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
This ought to be fun. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed?
Sorry.
Motion carries 3-2. We have 5 sometimes, that happens. All right, next, we're going to give Cleet a break. Mr. Dwayne Jones, you're up. Designate the method of procurement via purchasing cooperatives as the best value for the purchase and installation of playground shade structures at multiple campuses. That was the subject, not the motion, but go ahead.
Thanks, sir. This item, actually, the next 3 items are really all covering the same thing. This is just basically where we're asking for the approval to use procurement through the purchasing cooperative. Cooperative is basically, like I explained before at a previous meeting, as far as buy board. There's several different ones of which we're members, and so those vendors have already gone through in either an RFP or an RFQ process in order to become a member or a awarded vendor through the state for that cooperative. So by using this method, we're basically trying to utilize those vendors that have already gone through that process, as opposed to in the interest of time and in the interest of any expenses that we go through as far as soft costs to go through the whole process and do the RFQ and all that type of manpower that it takes. These companies have already been vetted, and so we're just going to them and then gaining quotes from each one of those, and it meets all of the procurement law requirements.
Okay,
As
so they've
far as
already
that.
been
Yes, sir.
pre-cleared, anybody that
Yeah, it's good for education code and government code.
Okay.
And you're not
It's
gonna see
fine.
anything significantly different if we bid. It's just gonna be a lot of extra
Yes,
work on
ma'am.
your part. I move we designate the method of procurement via a purchasing cooperative as the best value to the district for the purchase and installation of playgrounds, shade structures at multiple campuses.
Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Marilyn. Any questions on this one? See none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none, motion carries 5-0. Next is that, we still need to do the one for, yes, okay, designate the method of procurement via purchasing cooperative is the best for the purchase and installation of artificial turf at Boswell High School, football, baseball, softball, and auxiliary fields.
I move we designate the method of procurement via purchase cooperative as the best value for the district for the purchase and installation of artificial turf at Boswell High School football, baseball, softball, and auxiliary.
Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Tim. Questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. 2 down, 2 to go.
Yes, sir.
Next is, the motion's almost the action item, so I want to go ahead and.
So
Somebody
I
go
recommend
ahead.
we designate the method of procurement via a purchasing cooperative as the best value for the district for the purchase and installation of stage structures at Watson High School and shade structures at Saginaw High School and Boswell High School tennis courts.
Second.
Having set for tennis matches, I really second that. Any questions? Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Your hot page.
Okay, and then
Well, maybe we got a.
you want to
different
talk
one.
about this one, or you want me to?
Act
go
on
ahead?
purchase and
I
installation.
can, or it's up to you guys.
He's happy for me to go ahead and make a motion. So, I recommend we award to Grounds for Play the purchase and installation of playground stage structures at multiple campuses in the amount of $130,106.01.
Get that penny in
Get
there.
that penny.
Page made the motion and Marilyn seconded. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
That completes our action items, and we did have one report still to pick up from the report section at 5. Dr. Dawkins. It is Report C, the Human Resources Report.
President Newcomb, Dr. Chapel, members of the board, the first item for your review and consideration, elementary staffing. This is the staffing proposal based on demographer projections for current enrollment and looking at 1920 school year expected growth. So attached is a staffing proposal. We would work with decreases in FTEs. We would work with either through attrition on those positions or transfers to campuses with growth. So you can see that we're asking, if you'll look on the last page of that report, shows a summary of the campus movement and the request for FTEs. So at elementary, we are looking at an increase of 11 new teachers, and these are just classroom teachers at this point.
I had a question. Do you
Yes, ma'am.
anticipate additional revisions? I noticed these are some of the highest numbers we've ever seen at this point in the process. Some second through fourth grade classes up around 24. Are you anticipating we're going to have some more flex positions that we're going to need to add in there at some point?
Possibly. This is really our initial look at it.
These are the ones you know
So-
you're going to need.
Right. I've set the ratios. If you look at the top, I've set the ratios K through 2, 22 to 1, 3 and 4, 24 to 1. Ideally, the target would be 22, and then at fifth grade, 26 to 1 for staffing.
There's more certainty as we go to middle and high. These numbers were very, very, very conservative numbers.
They are.
You can nearly assume we'll come back and ask for additional
Ask for
positions in these areas.
So we don't, if they really did come in at 24, we don't intend to necessarily leave them at 24.
Correct. The intent here, and we discussed this a lot in our leadership team, was to bring you numbers. Usually we could get a lot closer, but with the growth and not knowing when some of those houses will finish and not being able to have patterns on the yield per home, this is the most conservative number. We will most likely be coming back here for elementary, less so for middle and less so for high. So, and we did build in some growth positions in those areas too.
And that's why we've numbered them this year, I believe, that this
Yeah,
is
trying to make it
the
easier to
first request or first.
Right.
And this is a report only, just as a reminder, so it'll come back in action next month.
Right.
Would be the.
I would ask for permission to post some of these positions, just especially for working with campus principals on especially staff transfers, just so that we can have people have an opportunity to possibly move to a campus of their choice. So that's for consideration.
Is that okay? We got minus, so the ones where you're projecting losing the teacher, that would allow that teacher to go ahead and apply
Right,
to another
correct.
internally?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. If we don't have a resignation or retirement at that campus at this time, and it's
Without-
early.
yeah.
It's early still. Any questions on elementary? I'll move to secondary. secondary staffing, we have similar. It shows movement, and you will see quite a bit of movement at our secondary middle schools, just with the opening of Marine Creek Middle School. We have shared this information with principals. We do expect, again, to have retirements and resignations that would satisfy some of the reductions naturally. And then also opening a new middle school, we've got staff that would be excited to transfer and be a part of that. For our high school, we would be looking at increasing staff. These are all, again, based on demographer projections. And you can see the net increase at Boswell, the effect on Chisholm, and then Saginaw remaining the same. The last page of the secondary staffing proposal has a net middle school, and I know that number looks fairly large at 28. Those are the balance of the classroom teachers for, primarily Marine Creek Middle School. That's where it's really having the impact. We did add 3 growth positions, so those are just additional units as we see with staff movement and a need for a specific area, content area specific. High school total, we have 4. We are asking for 3. And again, this would be a first proposal. And again, I would ask for the opportunity to begin posting these positions, not fill until after.
This is the second proposal though, right, on secondary? Because there's one in the consent agenda tonight.
Yes, sir. The first one was on our initial staffing for Marine Creek, where we have our, kind of our one-ups of our staffs.
All right.
Our athletic coordinators and some of our coaches.
So, even if we want to open a new middle school with 450 students, wouldn't we have, it wouldn't be 25. I'm guessing it would be something less than that.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions for secondary?
No? Without objection, go ahead and post.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our reports. Yay. Next is the routine monthly reports. Anybody have any questions on those? Hearing none. Next is the review the board planning calendar. Dr. Chadwick.
Yes, sir. Just gonna get to that page real quick.
241.
All right. The next board meeting, we have a continuation of our finance report. We do have the Aspire 2022 strategic plan update. Dr. Parker is going to be bringing that plan, and we continue to make just a few alterations in how we present that, and so she'll be doing that even a little different this next time. Appreciate your feedback as we bring that to you, because we don't want it to ever be just routine. We want it to kind of focus on different areas as we bring that forward. We also have the 1920 Staffing Proposal 1, you'll see there. Proclamation 2019 Instructional Materials Recommendation. Our CNI department's working very hard in that area. There's a lot to go through. If you're at the Halfley, you'll see materials all over the place they're having to review. So a lot of work in that area. We also have to act on election of members to the Board of Directors for Region 11, act on joint election with Tarrant County, set special meeting to canvass the 2019 school trustee election, and bids and proposals.
All right. We'll move next to the consent agenda. Paige, do you think there's something that needs to be?
This was my question.
Okay,
You
go
gave
ahead.
us a revised
Contract list?
contract list, so we need to, this motion should be as corrected, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, so I move we approve the consent agenda as corrected.
Okay. Motion by Paige, second by Dick. Any questions on that? All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. As far as board president announcements, I will encourage you to go through the folder that Becky gave to us. It's got several items wanting to know about our attendance. It has a thank you note in here from Tim and Denise Daughtry, and a letter from BLK about a donation they made in our names. and some other items, but Becky needs some of those back, the green, if you can, the summer leadership and the superintendent's breakfast, right? Okay. And thank you all for your concerns about my wife. She's recovering at home. Thank you for the flowers that were sent to her. She's getting better, so that's a good thing. Dr. Chapel, you already did your announcement.
Did months.
Appears there's no further business to come before this meeting. The chair will now entertain a motion that the board adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dick, second by Tim. We're adjourned.